So thank you very much, everybody, for coming here. It's quite an interesting dynamic, right? We talked about the travel rule before, and I don't think that kind of applies to us, right? Or maybe yes, right? So that's going to be something we're not going to be covering today. So it's DeFi 3.0. So for us, we're rethinking finance in the age of utility and scale. I think this is very important. Many of you here, and I just want to get a show of hands. So who has not engaged in decentralized finance at all? Like it's a newbie? No? We're preaching to the choir, guys. So let's get this started. So this is quite good. So thank you very much. My name is Claudio. I'm co-founder of Metapool. We're a multi-chain liquid staking DAO. We started on Near, then we went multi-chain, EVM and non-EVM. I'm a proud member of the Crypto Valley Association. I'm co-sharing with Patricio Zavala the LATAM chapter. We've been working since DevCon in Bogota. We kind of get everything started there. So really excited about DeFi because for us, coming from emerging markets, or what we're calling frontier markets, that's our bread and butter, right? Travel rule doesn't really apply in LATAM, so anyhow. So let's get this started. Let's first round of introductions from our panelists. So Marcel.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Marcel. I'm a board member of the Crypto Valley Association. One hat I wear, but today I'm actually here as a founder and CEO of THORWallet. THORWallet is a non-custodial DeFi wallet. We have a couple of USPs like cross-chain swaps, so you can trade with us across different blockchains. We were the first wallet to allow for a Bitcoin to unwrapped Bitcoin, native Bitcoin to Ethereum. By now, this has expanded to like 18 different layer 1 chains. We are also optionally a multi-signature solution, so you can co-sign with a second device, a third device, but not only for EVM assets, but actually any token, any chain. So very convenient for high security, and we have also implemented Swiss bank account and the global MasterCard, multi-currency MasterCard, Euro, Swiss francs, dollar, and Euro, natively into the non-custodial wallet. And like that, we'd like to basically become the one-stop shop of DeFi. Instead of going to centralized institution, you should immediately come to us. And yeah, happy to talk how that can
Perfect. Work. Alux, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, well, first of all, Viva Mexico. We have 2 Mexicans here in the panel. So yes, that makes me pretty happy. I'm co-founder of Maya Protocol. It's a friendly fork of THORChain. It's a cross-chain liquidity protocol that allows to have cross-chain swaps between tokens that with wildly different designs, not only like EVM to EVM. It's actually what THORWallet here uses in the backend as the rails to make these Bitcoin to pretty much any of these tokens swap, and we are essentially bringing scalability, redundancy, and more impact to what THORChain started 4 years ago. So happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming all the way from Mexico. Orest, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Like from what I hear, like we're all trying to solve same problem so far, like one-stop shop. Yeah, I am the CLO at 1inch. 1inch is the aggregation of liquidity. It's routing. We're routing liquidity, and I would say that 1inch is kind of a security-facing routing layer for B2C, B2B, B2B2C business with the risk management framework that we also try now to offer as a SaaS service. And nice to be here.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Michael.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael. I'm the CEO of Liquity. We develop DeFi protocols on Ethereum that allow you to take out loans against your Ether. So if you don't want to sell Ether but need liquidity or want to leverage, you can go to Liquity. It's similar to Maker. And the protocol since 2021 has processed more than 4.5 billion in loans autonomously. That's about Liquity.
Thank you very much. As you can see here, the panel is all about builders, right? This is people that have been in the trenches during the ups and downs, right? But the most important thing that I want for you to get out of this is you're gonna have an eavesdropping event with us, right? So I'm gonna ask Orest and also Marcel about giving us some insights on the metrics, like is global scale adoption happening or not? What are some of the key opportunities and challenges as well? Because for many of us that are in DeFi, we kind of feel like, oh yes, everything is going up into the right, but maybe on a global scale, and for people that are in traditional finance, maybe this is something not really significant, but I'm here to tell you that it is. So Orest, you want to share some insights and numbers on 1inch?
Let's kick it off, of course. So, listen, in terms of metrics, we was 1inch, I don't know if you know, but we do a lot. We don't just B2C, interface layer, we have a lot of B2B business, and it's actually maybe a more successful part of 1inch. That's why we see a lot of analytics insight, what is happening on the market. So what I can definitely say is that DeFi is just a friction of a TradFi right now, but we constantly growing. Doesn't matter on the market, good, bad, at least at 1inch, we always grow in terms of volumes. Yeah? So if we can compare the markets, the daily volumes at IMMs is around 8-10 bill per day. At CFI is 150 around bill per day. Nasdaq alone is 300. Yeah? At 1inch, we at total volume over a bit more of the 5 years is almost 700 bill and only almost 40 bill for the last month in May in terms of volumes. So, and again, it's always growing. We always see the number of users that are growing, and the number of institutional users that are growing. We don't have users, we have wallets, but we can say by the amount of funds they're holding, kind of. And we also try to identify unique wallets. So, always rising, always growing, just the friction, but we are confidently moving forward, definitely. And I don't know if the question of...
Any particular market or maybe region that is maybe outstanding in the last 6 months for you?
Well, APAC, Middle East. Definitely for us, it's growing. Also, the interesting fact is that the mobile application layer is growing. Yeah, in terms of usage from what we see as a first touch use for DeFi. We also have, because of the B2B business, we have many kind of centralized actors, more the CFIs, using a 1inch infrastructure for routing, and we see how the big players that are in the space with the new group of users that haven't used DeFi yet, with the help of incentivization, can adopt DeFi. What does it mean is that we see that if the centralized player gives some incentives for the users to use DeFi, they do that and in very big volumes, which is, and again, mobile application guys is rising.
Yeah, and that's what I was coming to, right? Marcel, this is, I think I've been a fan, right? What you have been building, right? And you've never stopped, right? But again, adoption is key. And I think you have first insights into global adoption as well. Care to share some of numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. So also maybe for some better understanding here, THORWallet, we have, for example, implemented 1inch. So 1inch is an aggregator we use. We have also implemented Maya Chain for cross-chain trading routes, basically. So we have a couple of those aggregators, and they compete with each other for the best pricing, and then we serve that to our users. Generally, I can basically agree. We push hard, we work hard, and we see the growth numbers growing. We're roughly at 200 million per month now cross-chain volume, which is, basically just the cross-chain routes, and then also some others on top, like EVMs, etc. And with those numbers, we are right now the top driving cross-chain or volume driver. So we still have a lot of room to grow, to get to the billions. What I can share, maybe some anecdotes, or also what we like to work at is, right now we see growth, but particularly probably those users are already familiar with blockchain, DeFi. There are various wallets out there, they like our services, they come to us and then they stick, because we also have the multi-signature, the card, maybe a pretty interface, but we are growing a lot from the existing market, which is growing, yes, but more and more we also see people from TradFi, from Revolut, and those kind of application moving over. And we see that in our support tickets, that when question comes up with why are there different USDCs on different chains, or I get an error message that I do not have enough gas, or what is gas? And those are then the things we want to work on, that eventually we want to have a wallet that is complete gasless, and users can, interact with chains without needing to know what that means. So we're still early, I would say, but we know the direction where we want to go.
Yes, I think for many here in the audience, right, you need to understand that it's always difficult. There's no way to signal, right, a region, because as Orest said, they're just wallets, right? Yeah. And we try not to get too much into details in the analytics and getting to really know our customers, which is kind of what DeFi does. But another important aspect here is that on the mobile applications, we've seen that it's shifting, right? In APAC, right? We see in the Middle East as well, right? The adoption is there, right? But care to share something around where do you see the pain point? You talked about something as simple as gas, right? And sometimes you have to explain to users about that, right? Like you need gas in order to operate, in order to use DeFi. Do you think abstracting that is going to enable more growth? Yes, no, what are some of the key challenges? Alux, you care to share a little bit around that?
Yeah, gas is important. Finality is another. So it's very difficult to explain the concept of a transaction will take a while to confirm. So how do we abstract that away as well? Because finality on Bitcoin is important if you're talking about moving $10 or $100 million. But if you already know that your transaction is with a big enough gas in the mempool or already in a block that just has one confirmation, you can already tell the user you have your money, chill. Because sometimes they're like, oh, I cannot spend it, what's going on? So things like I look a lot at Stripe, because in Stripe is the same thing. You don't have the money in your bank account, it's in your Stripe account. And they say, oh, it's in flight. And in 3 to 5 days you can withdraw it or something like that. But they don't tell you, oh, your money's not here, or oh, you cannot move your money, because that makes users panic. So it's how do we look at examples of TradeFi, examples of fintech, examples in banking, at how do they keep users calm and have the experience be smooth, and take those learnings and apply them into crypto, which of course makes our job more difficult, because the simpler it looks for them, the more engineering work we had to do, both in the back end and in the front end. And
customer service as well.
Oh yeah, customer, it's a lot of tickets every day. But these are the key things, and there are many pain points with time, finality, gas. People don't understand sometimes the concept of there being multiple chains. How do you abstract that as well? Because we love to show the kitchen, because we're passionate about the engineering, about the design, about the system, and we kind of try and convey that to the user excitedly. But the user just wants to sit down, have food, and go. They don't want to go and see your kitchen, even if it's amazing. So how do you make it a very nice, easy to use sit-down restaurant? That's kind of what we have to think about.
Yeah, and I think, Michael, it's important. Lending is at the center of DeFi, right? It is a very important component, right? But then global adoption of it's a challenge, right? It's like over-collateralization, right? Like, do I understand? Like, what are some of the key challenges and what are the opportunities that you're seeing for a lending protocol to really hit global scale?
I think the opportunity and the nice thing about DeFi, you roll it out worldwide. Everybody can access it from the web browser. And if you have a great product and together with incentive, you can grow really quickly. So I think that's really the nice part, and it moves swiftly. And that has very well worked for us like that. Where do I see the challenge? We talked about DEXs and trading, and stablecoin is the other big killer use case, which I think is fantastic. But with borrowing and lending, we're coming into an area where I think we have challenges, exactly to the topic we had before. And the major challenge is we're going to financial institutions and say, hey, why don't you plug in this great infrastructure and take out a use DeFi for your clients? And Bitcoin Swiss did a great use case with us 2 years ago. Their client could take out a margin loan against their ETH at Bitcoin Swiss with the company. And then they could choose to directly take out the loan not with Bitcoin Swiss, but with Liquity. So they put their collateral into Liquity and got the loan from Liquity as a counterparty. And that worked because there is no company, no counterparty. But the challenge for all these institutions with borrowing and lending is with these travel rules and AML, they can't really tap DeFi because they don't know who's on the other side. I go to Aave, whose money is coming in? So there I see a big challenge, kind of where we need to be careful that DeFi doesn't become a niche and kind of regulation protects the big player. Like
yeah, can we put the rails,
today.
right? The regulatory rails. I think we're still, well, of course, Switzerland here, don't get me wrong, you are on the right track, right? But then, well, more so or less, right?
No.
But it's not the Wild Wild West like going to APAC or LATAM, right?
But you know, a good example, I don't know who's aware of it, Switzerland wanted to introduce crazy stablecoin rules that just make stablecoins not interesting because you can't send it to anybody. A stablecoin from a Swiss bank doesn't work. And we almost introduced such regulation. That's what I say, we need to be very careful. Even if it's not a sexy topic, we don't like to talk about it. And with self-hosted wallet, it works. There, just I see, when you see this great technology, these great companies and products, where will the challenges come from? There I see challenges, you know.
Yes, so then coming into adoption and utility, right? And we heard right now from Michael, as I said, I believe that lending is at the core center. Yes, it is a tough nut to crack. It's not easy, right? But I believe that that's where things start to get interesting, where the opportunities lies into how do you enable institutions coming in. Because to be honest, yes, it is great that you enable somebody in El Salvador to over-collateralize their Bitcoin and get a $100, $200 loan. But let's be honest, like that's the tail end of it, right? We need to address first the lion's head, right? And this is bringing in institutions, which kind of in DeFi, where we're a little bit kind of like, oh, you were there, we were here, right? But I think now we're coming into a middle ground. And I think this is interesting. And I think what you're building here, Alux, with Maya is really, really key. Can you explain to us what you have done? What are some of the key challenges in growing your protocol? Because at the end of the day, as I said before, like DeFi protocols are enablers for L1s or L2s to grow, and you're being kind of at the forefront a little bit on it, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely challenging because when you're building a cross-chain DEX, you're not only worried about your own code and like what you're doing, you have to also worry about updates in every single chain you're integrating.
Plugging into, yeah.
And the thing is, we're not only just like integrating with an RPC or something. Our validators have to run a full node in those chains, and they have to kind of connect it all and deploy it together, but also have threshold cryptography vaults in those other chains. So it gets a bit complicated, but that is still manageable. The problem is, then how do you take that to the users? And I think that's where people like THORWallet, here with Marcel and other teams come in, which is how do they wrap it all in like a nice little gift for the users to just download. It works, it's easy to use, and have other use cases that mandate or require this cross-chain interaction. Because yes, some people want to hold Bitcoin and save on Bitcoin, but then they have to spend on a credit card, so then they can now move through Maya to Arbitrum, USDC, top up their card, spend in the restaurant. Oh, but now they want to pay with crypto at a coffee place, or they can move through Maya to Dash, which is accepted in many vendors worldwide. But how do you connect with all of these? Because we don't only need THORWallet, we also need to be on TrustWallet, on OneInch, on Ledger. So that interfacing, it's like this B2B side, and this regulatory stuff comes up as well. They have concerns because many of them have companies. Ledger is a manufacturing company in the end. They're producing ledgers. So they're somewhere geographically. They need to be compliant. So these questions start to arise, and where do you draw the line? I think it's also a problem.
Yeah, and Michael, care to share? You kind of were also an important component, right? Like it's lending, as I said. But then adoption, how does it happen, right? How do you solve the chicken and egg problem, right? It's like, do you go to institutions? Do you go to high net worth individuals? Do you go to retail? Like, how can you kickstart really DeFi 3.0 in this new era?
I think the great thing is that you have direct access to retail. I think that's really the starting point. There you see a lot of appetite, a lot of capital, or kind of these yield funds and so on. So it's not traditional institutional. Normally also that takes a lot of time. Yeah, and then you can kickstart it. But to be honest, in DeFi, a lot is about incentives. You know, like Revolut, sending me all week, I get 70 pounds if I onboard something. DeFi is not different, but it's more direct. But then you need to have a good product. I think a very nice use case that did a really great job was Isina. You know, introducing a really good product, tokenizing a trade, making it easy to access is a good product. Having some incentives, and they scaled it up. So I think it's two things, really having a good product and you need some incentives to grow faster. Yeah.
And talking about a great product and incentives and a full suite, Orest, tell us about 1inch. What's your perspective on it, right? Mobile application, you got lots of things happening. Maybe share a little bit of alpha if you can, but anyhow, tell us like what's the vision for 1inch growing in this new DeFi 3.0 era?
Yeah, I just will add to Michael, you know, that I really think that incentives by the right community is the key for adoption. Yeah, because even with Revolut, you have incentives with Revolut. But if you, as 1inch, will come to the Revolut user with our incentives, he was like, what is it? What the animal is that? You know, so it's really sometimes complicated to go to different communities, Gold One, Revolut, GP, Morgan, you know, and make them to adopt DeFi. So maybe institutionals should be more working on adoption using DeFi as infrastructure grade level that we're building. All, as you mentioned in the beginning, we're all builders. You know, we build Sync and we build DeFi adoption for TradFi, for CeFi, and someone outside the DeFi. So even at 1inch, we have the goal not to go outside DeFi space to a random user, you know, on the street and sell DeFi. We go and target CeFi users. We go and want to target TradFi users, and not necessarily directly, but through the infrastructure we are offering them, so then they can sell this idea of transparency, adaptability, easiness, and etc. But coming to your question, sorry, on 1inch, you know, what we do the best, and what I said in the beginning is we wrote liquidity. Yeah, and sometimes maybe it's also the problem of institutional adoption is that we have so many chains, you know, we have so many assets, we have so many liquidity which is fragmented, distributed, you know, and it scares them, like what to do with that, and it seems as a problem, yeah, but it is not to 1inch. And always you have a solution to the problem. What we do at 1inch, we do the aggregation of all the available liquidity. You know, we are finding the solution for the liquidity fragmentation, and we normalize price passes in a way that in the end, you know, we might go as far as to the traditional broker or NASDAQ even, you know, like to kind of, it's a lot of hops, but it's possible, you know, to give the end user the best call data instruction to go and swap to user, to our institutional user or to the end user or institutional for the B2B2C approach.
Perfect. Marcel, care to chip in on that one?
Yeah, I think it's very important to note that everyone on this panel has a very important stake in making DeFi great, right? It's very modular, and we work on different problems, and we want to solve it for the greater good in the end. I mean, it's a business, and we can make money, but there is also some probably higher interest purpose behind it. And so we, as mentioned, we already used to, like we can also implement lending and borrowing in a wallet. So then we are simply an interface that allows this great technology to face towards the users. And very similar to, you know, the internet technology that was basically, you can say, invented to share information worldwide for free. So you have global access to information. DeFi is here to make the financial system free and accessible for everyone, and transparent, and no monopoly, no gatekeeping, peer-to-peer, no middlemen, interesting yields. Just in the end, I would say a better financial system for society. And if we keep on grinding, all of us individually, in this modular aspect, eventually it will just grow. And since technology moves so fast, internet, in the 90s was crap. You had to plug in the modem, it made weird sounds, it was very expensive, only expert used it, and now we have 5G and everyone is connected. And DeFi is growing at a similar rate, probably actually faster than the internet. So we will solve all those issues, I'm quite certain. It just takes a bit more time.
Well, it's exactly. It takes time, and it's the great thing about DeFi, right? It's like the narrative around the Lego bricks. So you're seeing it here in its full-on potential. So we got a little bit of time here, and I do want people to get the best of you, right? So I kind of force you to be in this place. If you have any questions, you got 4 builders here and 1 panel that I would suggest you pick their brains. So any questions from the audience? There you go.
I have a question. In this kind of emerging environment where we're seeing institutions really interested in crypto and running permissionless protocols where anybody can access them and you use them, how do you consider risk from illicit use or assets being transferred through protocols, and what kind of responsibility do you think the protocols have to mitigating that kind of risk given their permissionless?
I love it.
Want to go for it?
Sure. So there's 2 things that we have to have clear when you're talking about protocols and infrastructure. Some set of rules apply. When you're talking about interfaces and the actual tools that facilitate the usage of said protocols, that another set of rule applies. So the latter is where you can introduce things like KYC, address screening, many tools that they're not always very effective, and I think that is a problem, because you do have this enormous cost to end users of all of these KYC processes in central exchanges, and the cost is huge. And what has really the benefit been? How many illicit flows have really been caught? Is it actually working? Because it's very cheap to buy a central exchange account in the market. You can buy one from another person's name for $50. So how really effective are you being closing into DeFi that's really innovating for the end user, for the little guys, to have access to banking when you're trying to kind of bring enforcement upstream to the financial level? Now, when you're talking about the protocols, that's neutral infrastructure. It's a highway building. You cannot blame a highway if some person drove through it after assaulting somebody because you helped them escape. Doesn't really make sense. So you cannot really go and tell Bitcoin or tell Ethereum or tell a decentralized exchange, stop this or don't do that, because first they don't really know. It's all code. It's all immutable code doing things automatically. And second, it's still permission. Even if you dislike it, if you disagree with the person, the problem is who's choosing, who's right, who's wrong, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And wherever you draw the line, that line will be pushed and abused. So you have to be very careful when you're talking about the protocol. We had these same debates, guys, in the internet in the 1990s. What do you do if somebody sends an illicit message, a bad picture? You should go. Are you going to go to the guy running the servers? No, the internet, we now understand this infrastructure. It's free, it's open, it's a World Wide Web, and it's permissionless to use. Now, at the front-end level, at the actual tools, we're talking about Facebook, they should have moderation. If you're talking about X, they should have moderation, because they're at the front-facing part. So you have to really differentiate both, because they'll be mixed, and then it's when it gets confusing. And
go right ahead, Orest.
Just to add to you, man, that everything, right, but it's a very good question. And just, straight away, you don't need to apply the bank rate compliance to the DeFi, to whatever layer, yeah? but there are basics that you can even use on a protocol layer, yeah? Not really, messing this up or being a mediator unfair to someone, yeah? So at 1inch, we do we call it risk management, because let's be clear, we don't have rules, at all. And you really need to be proactive. And it's also the problem, because you're creating some rules, some frameworks, and you hope they are right in the end of the day, yeah? Of course, you pick up the best brains, if you work with the best advisors in the space. But in the end, if there is no rules, it is quite of an issue. But, I mean, what we do is we actually, if you take a look on DeFi, you can probably fragment them to the 3 layers, like interface, protocol, and infrastructure layer. And each of the DeFis may use part of it, all of it. We at 1inch have 3, yeah? And each level we have risk management, securities, in a way. Blockers, fraud preventions, fraud manipulations. We even adding market surveillance. We do it very quietly and try to do very efficiently, avoiding false positive and baby steps. And we have, if you're interested, you can even Google 1inch security white paper. It's some principles on what we see, how we can add those kind of layer of securities to generally DeFi, to all the layers. Yeah, but this is a very important topic that we're actually spending a lot of efforts to. And actually all the space, we see that. We see how much, and many protocols are doing that. And we even deploying software as a service for our risk management in case, guys, you're interested. Yeah.
Here.
APIs. Yeah.
Marcel, you wanna answer a question as well?
Yeah. All right. I would say my view is like this. If you really have DeFi protocols that run on a decentralized protocol, they run on that internet computer or that blockchain forever, right? You cannot shut it down. Then the question is really, is it really DeFi in terms of, is there still an admin key where you can access the code and manipulate? Can you do a rug pull? Like, is it pseudo DeFi or not? There you need to protect the users. If it's fully DeFi, the users are protected. There is only a technology risk, which is decreasing over time. But if there are pseudo DeFi projects, they can, do shady stuff and steal funds. That's no good. Now, regulators need to understand that if a smart contract runs on a blockchain forever, for eternity, and it's permissionless and openless and accepted by anyone, how do you want to regulate it? You can't. So what you need to do is you need to regulate the exit when you go out and when you go in. So the on and off ramp, that's where you need to regulate sharply. If there are illicit funds flowing out at some point, you want to spend them to buy stuff, you go to the money service, that's why the VASPs, the virtual asset service providers, they need to do AML, KYC to see if there is illicit fund, and that's where the bad actors can get caught. In the DeFi space, they only need to regulate if it's true DeFi or if it's pseudo DeFi, but need to understand that if it's real DeFi, you cannot even regulate it.
Yeah, so anyhow, so we're coming to a close. Again, thank you very much. The panelists are going to be here for a while, so make sure you pick their brains. Would like to thank each and every one of you for coming in today, and each and every one of you as well. So thank you very much. Let's wrap this up. Thank you very much, everybody. Until next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.